Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Braden. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Balls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee hoper?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, Shane, we are doing great over here. If you missed it, Rusty Manziel interview, that's a must listen on YouTube, on the podcast, however you consume it. Make sure you check that out. And I'll tell you, Shane, a little backstory with Rusty. So he came into Nashville for this Nashville On 3 event.
Yeah.
He was only in town for 2 days, and I didn't realize he was even in town. I hit him up. You know, a lot of people, Shane, I asked, some people are in here for a week, Shane, and they won't give me the time of day. I'm not going to name names, but Rusty, the elite of the elite, highly in demand, only got 2 days. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll make time for you on my way out of town. And he went over his allotted time. So that's just the kind of guy Rusty is. I couldn't be more thankful. You know what?
Absolutely. And if you guys haven't listened, I mean, this is a great interview. I always love Rusty. I can't wait to see him in media days. But you need to pause this show and go to that one real quick because I'm telling you, just some of the stories. I think Rusty's one of those guys, kind of like Sam Pittman to me. Like, I'd like to have just a couple cold beers and just hear some war stories because he's been around some of the all-time greatest athletes that you grew up loving. So, yeah, this is really cool. A lot of fun stuff. And like I said, if you've not listened to that interview, stop what you're doing right now and put that one on.
Right, and then right after that, Shane, the next day, one of the highlights of what I get to do, Paul Feinbaum hit me up and said, hey, will you come on the show? And that's gone viral. So we got Alabama media, the biggest outlet in the state, writing about my goofy ass, saying wild things on the Feinbaum show. So go back and check that out if you haven't missed it. We've been on fire, Shane, and we've got a hell of a lot more to come, including we are going to start our fall camp previews. We're thinking next week.
Yeah.
Those did incredibly well last year. We're going to do every team, about an hour solo on each and every team. And you know, if breaking news happens, Shane, we'll pop in and we're still going to cover all that. But
right.
These shows are more dedicated, one team, one episode. And I cannot wait for us to, break down the schedules and the rosters and the coaching staff and put our Homer glasses on for each and every SEC team. You know what?
It's one of my favorites, Mike, and one of the rare times I don't say "Go Vols" at the end of these things. You know, some of these are a little hard to mouth. You know what I'm saying? But I was thinking about the Feinbaum comment you made earlier. I always know when you're on because I get tagged, Mike. I get tagged saying, "Oh yeah, he's not the smart cousin." You know, I'm like, oh, Mike must have been on Feinbaum here. I'm getting roped into this one. So, but no, back to the previews. One of my favorite parts. We're going to have some guests too, popping in every so often and doing a deep dive on your team. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. This is where I learn a lot. You know, when we start doing some heavy research on this stuff, that's when I start really learning about what's this program going to look like coming into 2023.
Yeah. Well, Shane, and we have got a heck of an idea for this episode. We're going to be able to hit on all 14 SEC teams. And, of course, man, we're still not done talking about the day of future scheduling. So we still got that. On Friday's show, of course, you know, we broke it all down. SEC staying at 8 conference games for the 2024 season. We think it's just going to be 2024, but we do not yet know. And the SEC, they're going to reveal it on the SEC network June 14th. The 8 conference games for all 16 SEC. We got to remember, Shane, we got 2 more coming into the boat. So
That's
we're
right.
doing all 16 right here, Shane. I am ready to predict with a high degree of confidence the entire SEC schedule for 2024. How's that sound?
No, that sounds awesome. And it's wild, brother. Seeing Texas and Oklahoma floating around, some of these matchups that we potentially could see right out of the gate. I'm pumped up. I'm ready for it. And just a reminder, guys, we are going to do a live broadcast on Flag Day I don't know. I keep bringing that up. This national holiday needs more attention, Mike, and you do it by releasing SEC schedules. So we are going to get on live. So if you've not got on there yet, get on the YouTube, That SEC Podcast, hit subscribe, turn those notifications on, and we're going to get this live reaction. We're going to see just how close SEC Mike was to getting these right.
Yeah, right. And Shane, if you listen to people like Feinbaum, he's saying the schedule's already done. Now, he's not reporting that, but I guess it's just what he's been told. And I've heard from other people, Shane, ESPN was anticipating a 9-game schedule. So I think they already had an idea of where this thing was going. So let me just give you a brief idea of where I put this together so I'm not just throwing darts at a wall here. It's already been reported. Ross Dellinger, Sports Illustrated, he was the one that wrote the article. Nick Saban's mad. They got LSU, Auburn, and Tennessee and started this whole damn conversation all over again. And apparently the SEC is going by this metric, Shane. They're breaking the league essentially into the top half and the lower half. And how they're breaking that down is the last 10 years, the record in conference play. Now, They do have to throw in Texas and Oklahoma, which obviously they don't have those SEC records. But I think they're just going to go off their Big 12 records. So are you with me so far? A top half and a lower half of the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, thank God they're not going off the SEC. I don't think they've won a game in 10 years against the SEC. Just kidding. I'm looking at you, Arkansas. I'm looking at you, Texas and Alabama and LSU. Come on now. Hey, it's going to take some getting used to, Mike. I know I've got to embrace these guys, but it's going to take some getting used to. So I know somebody's pointing out some random bowl game Oklahoma smoked us in, but I ain't counting that one.
Right.
Or even the Tennessee game. Yeah, that one didn't count either. You know what? That's a terrible idea. All right, continue. I've been drinking.
So, according to that 10-year metric, Shane, these are the teams considered top half SEC teams. And they're pretty obvious. Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, LSU, Florida, Texas, Auburn, and Texas A&M. Are you with me there?
I'm with you.
So the bottom half programs, Missouri, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Tennessee, but not according to Nick Saban, South Carolina, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. And why Nick Saban was so angry, because he said, well, what the hell, Tennessee, they're winning 11 games. That's not a bottom team. But again, we're going over a 10-year metric. So how they're going to try to break down these schedules, Shane, Greg Sankey has already laid it out for us. They're going to keep the rivalries as best as they can, the primary and secondary, and they're going to try to create balance. So what does that mean? I mean, again, this is me kind of inferring what he's saying, Shane, but if you're Alabama, you're at the top half.
Yeah.
Balance would not be you facing a bunch of bottom tier. It's more you facing top tier with bottom tier mixed in, and vice versa. If you're Vanderbilt, they're not going to give you 6 top-tier teams. They're going to try to give you as many lower-tier as they can. Does that all make sense?
Yeah. No, when you say mix, it almost feels like if you are one of those top-tier teams, which, oh, my gosh, Mike, it pains me just to see Tennessee consider. It's been a long 10 years, brother. I know last year was awesome, but that just goes to show it's been a long run. And there's other programs that are facing this: South Carolina, Arkansas, Kentucky. I'm looking at you. But yes, I'm kind of in my mind imagining like a team like Alabama, top tier, going to be facing potentially 2 other top tier and maybe 1 lower. Does that sound about kind of along the same lines as what you're thinking?
Exactly. So we're not trying to make it, where Alabama and Georgia have to go through this gauntlet and Vanderbilt's got a cakewalk to the college football playoff, but we are trying to kind of make it as competitive and fair as we possibly can in a 16-team SEC. So without further ado, Shane, here's how I see Alabama. There are 8 games. And again, I don't know home and away. The SEC is not even going to announce that on the 14th. They're just going to tell you the 8, and they're going to get the home and away and the dates. They'll figure that out at a later point. But for Alabama, Shane, I mean, it's a no-brainer. They got to play Auburn.
Right.
We got to keep the Iron Bowl going.
Yes.
Tennessee. I think they're going to give them Tennessee to keep the third Saturday in October alive and well. And Papal is going to be mad, Shane, but they're going to give them LSU because, I mean, that is essentially maybe the best rivalry, top 2 or 3 in
sells tickets.
The last decade in the SEC, right?
Yes.
Now, here's where it's going to get interesting, Shane, because we just gave them. So that's 2 top-tier programs, 1 lower tier.
Back to the Texas, Oklahoma. Are you considering them a top tier or?
Yes, sir. They're both top tier.
Okay.
And speaking of the devil, Shane, I'm giving Alabama, Oklahoma in a conference game. Oh man, that's just going to be great the first time they meet as conference foes, isn't it?
It seems like it's teed up nicely because we did have Texas last year. We're going to have Texas this year. Right. So let's go ahead and roll that up. Let's just take that off the board. Let's introduce Oklahoma and Alabama. I like that, Mike. I love that, actually, and wouldn't be surprised if it's not played in Oklahoma.
Right. And then I'm giving them, because this is, I don't know if you could quite call this a rivalry, Shane, but it is a great game, and the storylines galore. Ole Miss. Now, that's a bottom tier, so we got to give Alabama some bottom tier here. But Ole Miss, Alabama, that's a hell of a series with a long tradition there, so I like to see that.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm throwing this one in, Shane, just because this is – what's the one game, when we're doing this, when we're saying, all right, let's get rid of the East, let's get rid of the West, if everybody's being perfectly honest, Shane, what is the one game the country – these 2 fans may not want to see it, but the entire country wants to see play more in the regular season? Who am I talking about? Of course, Alabama's one. Who's the other?
Georgia.
Give them dogs, Shane. Throw them in there.
Because that's what they said. You talk to Alabama fans like, well, they didn't want us in the playoffs because we could have ruined Georgia's, run. So the SEC champions, it's like this shouldn't be the only time these 2 teams get to play. So yes, give me Alabama, give me Georgia. I'm signing up for that one.
Now, so we don't get Nick Saban so mad he retires because he's like, by God, we got all these teams.
I'm throwing him pillows right now. He's listening to this. He's like, Mike better not be right. Better not be right.
I'm throwing him a bone here, Shane. And everybody's going to get madder than hell. Everybody that's not an Alabama fan. Who do you think I'm talking about? Who's Alabama
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, come on there. So we got to balance this a little bit. You know what I mean? And
that's how Sankey rolls it out to him. We're going to give you Vanderbilt in Georgia. And then... do you like Missouri? We're going to Mizzou.
Last one for Alabama, and this is turning into a nice little rivalry here, Shane. Give me them Aggies, Texas A&M. So to recap, Alabama catching Auburn, Tennessee, LSU, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M. My God, this is going to be glorious, Shane. And the best part, again, I'm balancing this. So Alabama's going to catch 5 top-tier programs and 3 bottom-tier. So it is equal. You know what I mean? I mean, this if you're a dog, you gotta prove it on the field. So I think this is what the schedule is going to look like. Something very similar to this.
Very similar, Mike. And I think one of the things too, it's like we get caught up complaining with the 9-game schedule. Everybody was caught up in who's the three. But then when you look at a schedule, you're going to be playing a lot of dudes that aren't going to be a rival, that you're not going to be playing on an annual basis, that are still just absolute beasts to go up against. Oklahoma, Georgia. Yep. This is what you're dodging. And I'm not giving Nick Saban shit. I mean, I think the reality is going to set in that we're just going to have a tough schedule, period. We're going to have – I eventually think it's going to move to a 9, and I think that's why this 8-game schedule that's about to roll out is going to kind of go in that direction, So you put Tennessee on there. You put Auburn on there. You put
Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, A&M.
LSU. So that's what what we think the 3 would be. That's kind of what's come out. So it would not be a surprise to see that on an 8-game schedule here. So, but say what you want, those other teams are still very tough, and Alabama doesn't need a run from it. Alabama is a top dog. There's a reason they're a top tier, and they have an opportunity to beat every single one of them. And so that's the mentality. I think eventually that light switch is going to hit. Say, you know what, we are Alabama, and this is not a problem. There's still a shot that we can run the board on these boys. So I'm pumped up. I think that's an awesome schedule, and I hope they do it in alphabetical order so we hear theirs first.
Now, how about this one, Shay? Let's do Arkansas. I think they are poised to potentially be one of the biggest winners when we go away with the divisions, kind of balance things out a little bit more, but still give them a challenging schedule that the fans will be excited for. So the Arkansas Razorbacks, Shane, again, we're sticking with the rivalries. They don't consider it a rivalry. It's kind of a rivalry. I'm giving them Missouri. Keep that thing going, the border war there. Texas, every Razorback fan and their mother can go sign up to play the Longhorns. So let's give them Texas. You know, these games have not gone their way, but I think it's a nice little rivalry. Give them Texas A&M. Let's just move it out of J World, please. Let's go home and home with that bad boy.
Yeah.
LSU, they love playing for that golden boot. I think Arkansas fans are fine with playing LSU. Ole Miss, who they play a lot, so let's keep that going. Mississippi State, who they've fared, fairly decently with here in recent years. Now, a lot of West teams here, so we got to give them some East, and I give them 2 that are on the bottom tier, Shane. Vanderbilt, I think everybody will sign up for Vanderbilt. And then last but not least, I cannot wait to see these teams play more, Shane. It's going to be great for us. Tennessee playing Arkansas. Again, if you ask an Arkansas fan right now, would you trade your schedule for Missouri, Texas, A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt? I think they'd take that in a heartbeat. So, I think this is potentially going to really help the Razorbacks to where they don't have to go through just the West Gauntlet every year.
Are you worried about them not trying to push East teams on? I mean, because like you said, you went through 6 West opponents, and then Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Do you think that there's some sort of push to really even this thing out and maybe take 4 teams from the East, 4 teams from the West? Do you see any type of narrative like that playing out?
Well, perhaps, Shane, but and actually it was only 4 West teams. So really it's 4 West, it's 3 East, and it's Texas. So it does kind of balance itself out. And again, this is another one. I did this for everyone, Shane. Arkansas is designated as a lower tier team. Right. So they play more lower tier teams than they are playing upper tier. And that's where it's going to create balance in the schedules and make, let's call it like it is, Shane. Some SEC fans, they say, well, why should I even get excited? Because it's just going to be Georgia and Alabama and LSU dominating the SEC. Well, a schedule like this. Now let's not kid ourselves. You can't just roll the ball out against Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, on and be like, oh yeah, we're good. But if you got a great quarterback, you got a good line, maybe you got some stud defenders, you can win a lot of these games. You could put together a hell of a season. You could get to the college football playoff. Again, I think this is great for the league if they do it like this, and this is the model that, as I understand it, this is how it's going to break down.
Yeah, no, I'm with you here. And now the playoffs expand in 24, so we're gonna. I mean, you're looking at this schedule, 8 SEC games. How many did we put in there? And do they penalize them if they're not 9? That's another thing. I'm very curious to how this plays out. But I mean, you look at a schedule like that. It's because we do this, Mike. We're going to do this when we do the in-depth analysis on these teams, and we put on those Arkansas glasses and we say, hey, this is exactly how it could happen. But how many times are we like, well, this one needs to be, this 50-50 game, this one needs to fall their way, this one needs to fall their way. Well, sometimes if the schedule lines up, you may not need 4 miracles. You may just need one. Or, you know what I'm saying? You may need one of those 50-50 games, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there at the door of the college football playoffs. So, yeah, man. Okay. I'm buying that schedule. I like it. Tennessee and Arkansas, I ain't seen that. Let's do it.
How about Auburn, Shane? Again, I think this is going to be a fun schedule, and they're another one poised to, they got to go through the West, and they catch Georgia every year. So they are right in the eye of the storm, so to speak. We got to give them Alabama. We already said that. Keep that Iron Bowl going. Keep Georgia on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Already it's turning into a murderer's row here. Florida, but again, Auburn, Florida used to play every year. It's a great rivalry. We'll be able to get this game more often. LSU, I love that one, but all of a sudden you sit here and say, whoa, my God, we got 4 juggernauts right out the gate.
Yeah. I'm not signing up for that.
No. So we swing it back, Shane. Mississippi State, Kentucky, Missouri, and then we cap it off with Texas. So that would be 5 upper tier, 3 lower tier. But again, Auburn is considered in the upper tier, so we're trying to balance it out. If you're in that upper tier, you got to play more upper tier teams. But again, I think the vast majority of Auburn fans, they say, yeah, that's a murderer's row, but it's not as bad as catching the entire West and Georgia and throw in a Tennessee. You know what I mean? Like, again, I think this is a little bit more of a manageable schedule, and you get to play your rivals, and you get to kind of see a Florida, who used to be your rival.
Yeah, I kind of like to see Tennessee penciled into that one because that's another one, an old school rivalry that could potentially fire back up. So we've had some great games the last few times that we've played. So, but no, I'm with you here. This would be a tough draw. I think Auburn has a tough draw. Being considered an upper tier while they're building something, I mean, they're just now getting going, and that's so they're still going to have a tough draw. Then you factor Alabama, you factor Georgia. There's no way they're going to keep those 2 teams off the schedule. They're still going to have one of the toughest schedules in the SEC, but it could equalize. It could, because like you said, you got some good draws on there too, and just need a little noise, Mike. You just need a little action to start getting into play in the top 25. So, I'm good with this schedule.
Right, and I also went a step further, Shane, and I said, is Texas really a top-tier SEC team? I mean, if we're being honest, they may when
last
they get
10 years.
I don't think so, Shane. I really don't.
Yeah.
But when they come in the league, maybe they are good enough. So that's kind of why I threw Texas to Auburn, because you can make the case they're a lower-tier team. So in that respect, at least via the SEC. So in that respect, maybe Auburn catches a break getting Texas. You see what I'm saying here? So there's a big difference between catching Texas and catching Georgia. You know what I mean? Like they're not on the same level, clearly. You know what I mean?
No.
All right, so here's the schedule for Florida, Shane. Well, again, got to play Georgia. That's not going away. We're getting that Auburn game back. Fired up about that. LSU, I'm keeping that on the schedule for this year. Tennessee, Shane, you can't escape that game as much as you may want to, not 2024. And I'm starting to really like this Kentucky game, Shane. I don't think the Gators like it, but I think Kentucky likes it. So let's keep that rivalry going. South Carolina, that is another fun game. South Carolina in the Gamecocks, in the Gators. Vanderbilt, I'm throwing Florida's way. And then Oklahoma. So this is one of the few, Shane, where it was Florida is considered an upper tier, but the schedule I have is balanced. It's 4-4. But, maybe this is throwing the likes of Florida, which is in a rebuild, a little bit of a bone, because to Nick Saban's point, we could say Tennessee's an upper tier. And if you consider Tennessee upper tier, then Florida's got a challenging schedule. So there's flexibility here that I think the SEC, maybe it's not right for them to say, well, Florida's in a rebuild, let's give them a break. But maybe they do that because maybe that's how a team, we're all looking at Florida and saying, oh, I don't know, 7 wins. Maybe with a schedule like this, they win 10 and they surprise everybody and they make a run to the college football playoff. I think the SEC, there's an opportunity to allow teams that may need some help, that have potential, to make a run like that.
Do you think there's any rhyme or reason? Because you're not the first I've listened to that's said anything about Florida and Oklahoma getting together. I mean, obviously you think of the Tim Tebow jump pass, and that was fun and that was exciting, but that was many moons ago. In fact, we're about to watch a Netflix series for this thing, about to come out before too long. A little behind the scenes of the Florida Gators. But I'm curious, what do you think the push is for those two teams? And why do obviously you put it on there because you've got a feeling that it's going to be there. Why do you think the SEC wants to see that matchup?
Well, honestly, Shane, I think because Florida, they have some rivals, but the ones that you really want to give them, it's Georgia, it's potentially Auburn, but Auburn's already locked into Alabama and Georgia. So is it fair to Auburn to sit here and say, oh, yeah, well, you got to play Florida too? I mean, that's a damn murderer's row when Florida's rolling. So it's just hard to find the permanence for Florida. LSU, potentially, but LSU's tied up in others. Tennessee, Kentucky, those are so far from Gainesville. Can we, maybe, hell, Norman, Oklahoma's a lot further. But at the end of the day, Shane, we're talking 2 of the top 10, 15 programs in modern college football history. Yeah. I know that feels weird and it's an outlier, but when we're having 16 teams in a conference, Oklahoma doesn't have that rivalry either with many SEC schools short of Arkansas, Texas, and maybe Missouri. Oklahoma's an outlier. Florida's a little bit of an outlier. And it just given their history, it just feels like we can forge this into a potentially a great rivalry.
Yeah. I'm such a big fan of the Florida LSU matchup. That's one I wish that they could keep. This is just an outsider. I know there's probably Florida fans like, Shane, shut the hell up. Let's get rid of these guys for now. But I just when I watch those games, a lot of them have come down to the wire, one possession, and some of the greatest. I've been doing these big orange walks, and I'm trying to. I'm doing videos and trying to figure out, and there's a handful of these Florida LSUs that I'm holding on to till we get to that number because there is just so many good games. So, I'm just kind of curious, pushing for an LSU or pushing for an Oklahoma, but I've heard it from multiple people saying that potentially is going to be on the schedule, and it just kind of, I don't know, kind of a head scratcher. But obviously they got to give them somebody.
Right. And also, on the other hand, Shane, LSU is going to have A&M. They're going to have Alabama, potentially. And then you're going to really throw in Florida, too. That's a gauntlet for LSU, too, as a permanent. So
yeah, that's true. And again, we make rivalries. Mizzou and Arkansas, Arkansas doesn't acknowledge that it's a rivalry, but it's turned into one, and you watch some of these games. So maybe Florida, Oklahoma, 20 years from now, we're like, oh, it's they'll have some fancy name for this game, Yep. What the Gator Sooner matchup, Oh my gosh, it's at Camp World, so
the Bob Stoops Bowl.
Yeah, they got to come up with something fancy. So that'd be kind of cool. The new trophies that they're going to be handing out during these matchups.
Yep. All right, how about for Georgia, Shane? Here's where I see their 8 SEC opponent. Obviously, Florida. Obviously, right. Auburn. We've already talked about that. They're 2 big rivals. South Carolina, I think that's an underrated, I don't know if you quite call it a rivalry, but I think South Carolina kind of considers it one, so we keep that one alive. Tennessee. That's a great game.
Now I feel like Nick Saban, He's like, damn it, Mike, why you keep piling them on us?
We already said Alabama. That'll be good. Georgia, Alabama. They've never played at College Station. This has got to be the year, Shay. So give me A&M, and I'll just tell you that game's going to be in College Station. They've literally never played out there, so give it to them. Oklahoma, challenging schedule here, and then Kentucky, which that's turned into a nice little game too.
Yeah, that's a fun one too.
This is a very difficult schedule, but according to top tier, lower tier, you got 5 upper tier, you got 3 lower tier. So I think this is a fair one for them dogs.
Yeah, well, as Kirby says, he don't care about schedules. I think they're overrated. He's pumping iron in the basement. He doesn't care. He ain't got time for that. Just put somebody on the field. They'll take them.
All right, how about Kentucky, Shane? I think they'll sign up for this one. South Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
That's the sunglass game. We got to keep at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tennessee, we got to have that bourbon bet. Please give us Tennessee, Kentucky. Vanderbilt, I think they'll be happy with that. Florida, who they have kind of owned lately. I guarantee you they'd be fired up to play the Gators. Mizzou, Auburn, Georgia, and Ole Miss. So, again, I think if you're Kentucky, I think you sign up for that in a heartbeat. You've got a couple upper tier, but mostly lower tier teams, and that is to your advantage.
No, I think you're right, Mike, and I think when you talk to a Kentucky fan, they're listening to all those saying, "Hey, now we've got a shot here." Because remember, even if you drop to Georgia, you could still make. How many times have they dropped to Georgia and they're out? They're out of SEC play. They're out of all. But 2024, they still got a shot to get in the college football playoff. So, yeah, I think Wildcats would sign up for that in a heartbeat.
Not only the playoff, Shane, but I've seen some Tennessee fans say, "Well, this getting rid of divisions, this is so stupid." Well, guess who would have played in the SEC championship last year, Shane? If we didn't have divisions, it would have been Georgia. It would have been Tennessee in a rematch for the right to go to the college football playoff, at least for the Vols. Georgia.
We would have beat
Georgia
them on the second
lost.
round, Mike. We would have got them. They had us in the first. I'm not going to lie.
So exactly what you're saying, Shane. Kentucky could lose to Georgia.
Yeah.
If they beat everybody else, which is not a given, but if they beat all the rest of these teams, they may meet them again in Atlanta on a neutral field.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the crazy part, and it's gonna take a how exactly have they talked about how they were going to pick SEC champs? How that's going to break down?
They have not fully broken that down, Shane. But obviously, I've heard them say head to head. That's clearly the number one. If there's a tiebreaker, apparently they're going to use some kind of complex model for the third one. I can't remember all of them, but it's obviously overall record, head to head, and then some model. So they do need to clarify that for sure. I mean, God forbid we got 3 or 4 with one loss. I mean, oh man.
Back to the BCS, are we?
All right, how about for LSU, Shane? Again, we're getting the Aggies. I think that's going to be in the annual rotation.
Got to be.
Ole Miss, a Magnolia Bowl, keep that one going. Alabama, difficult game, but I think that's going to be an annual affair. Arkansas, we're keeping that Golden Boot. Auburn, I love LSU Auburn as a game. This one's for you, Shane. I'm keeping Florida on that schedule. Mississippi State and Texas. So this is another one. It's a little bit more challenging. It's 5 upper tier teams. It's 3 lower tier. But you're LSU. You're in that upper tier. You're competing for SEC and national championships. You can't run from a challenge.
Yeah.
I think the LSU schedule is going to look something very similar to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, they're getting at that point. There's a handful of teams, and you know who you are, that you don't worry about schedules as much as some of these other programs, you know. And I think LSU's getting to that point where, yeah, it's a tough road, but we can beat everyone on this if we play our game. You know, they keep loading up talent. They keep winning ball games. They keep developing down there. I think LSU does not care in 2024 who's on that schedule.
Right. And I would also argue, Shane, maybe if you're an LSU fan and you're saying, well, this is a damn challenging. You're giving us 5 upper, 3 lower. But that does count Florida as an upper, which who knows? They may not be in the upper half by this time. And also Texas, which, again, we're kind of even debating which category they belong in. So you are potentially facing 2 teams that are in the bottom half of the SEC that we're not even counting as bottom half. So this could be a very manageable schedule for the Tigers.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, when you put this out there, we all have our own idea who's upper and who's lower right now. So, and it's different than the tier basis that we're going off of the last 10 years. So, I think LSU's fine with this, Mike. I think there's some pretty cool matchups. I think that I'm looking at that LSU Texas. I think that would be freaking awesome. I would like to see that at night. No, wait, no. Did they play in Texas? Did they play when the last game? Did they play?
The last one with Joe Burrow was at Texas, and I believe they played. I don't want to get this wrong, but I think they did it in LSU the year before or 2 years. I can't remember, but I know the last one was at Texas.
It was a great game. You know, it was a little dicey there at first, but then LSU, because I had my money on that. I had a lot of money on that one, Mike, you know. So, but that one was an awesome. It's like I don't know. I just think it would be awesome in Death Valley. If I'm picking that one, I want it at night, you know, under the lights. Texas and LSU, come on now.
Oh, yeah. All right, how about Oklahoma, Shane? Interesting to see what their schedule is going to look like. We got to give them Texas. That's going to be played annually. I'm giving them Mizzou. I think they've played like 90-something times. We already said Alabama, welcome to the SEC Sooners. Texas A&M, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Florida, and Mississippi State. So, again, a very challenging schedule, but if you're in the upper half, you got to play a little bit more upper-tier teams. I think I don't know if Oklahoma would sign up for this, but I don't know that they have a choice going into the SEC. They don't have a choice to say what they will and won't do. You know what?
You will just eat what we give you, you know? It's like my parents used to say, if you don't like it, you could go somewhere else. You know? So, no, this is cool too. So give me that quick rundown one more time.
So these are for Oklahoma, Texas,
right,
Missouri, Alabama, Texas A&M, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Florida, and Mississippi State.
Yeah. Oh, welcome to the SEC.
Now, how about this? Here's another perfect example, Shane. I think Ole Miss fans would sign up for this schedule. Mississippi State, of course, we got to keep that Egg Bowl intact. Yeah. LSU, rivalry game. Arkansas, that's one of the most fun games on the schedule every year, Arkansas and Ole Miss. Texas A&M, that Jimbo Lane Kiffin feud is very real.
Yes.
So let's keep that one going. Alabama, that's a tough game. Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Missouri. So if I'm Lane Kiffin and company, I'm looking at this schedule. I think we got a good shot in a lot of these ball games.
Man, I wish they'd come back to Neyland. But, yeah.
That's the beauty of this, Shane. Next year, they will.
Absolutely. No, that's true. That's true, man. You forget this thing bounce. Well, we don't know what this is. They'll change it all again next year. But, Mike, I think this is awesome. And just, again, imagine. Because, again, you wait so many years to see some of these matchups. It's like, how often are you talking about an Ole Miss in South Carolina or something? You know, it's like it comes around. It's like a Hades. What's that comment that comes around so often? Maybe that's a terrible example.
Haley's Comment every 75 years.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, Mike. It feels like it's been 75 years. I should never go there. I don't know why I bring up interesting stats. I clearly have no idea how it works. So what you're saying is I'm never going to see that comment again. I should have went outside and looked at it. Damn it. I thought it came back every 8 years.
All right, how about Mississippi State, Shane? Here's their schedule. Ole Miss, of course, Egg Bowl. Arkansas, Vanderbilt, LSU, Auburn, Missouri, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. And they're another one. So they're listed in the bottom tier. So they get more bottom tier opponents to balance the schedule out. I would sure as hell rather play Ole Miss, Arkansas, Vandy, LSU, Auburn, Mizzou, Oklahoma, and South Carolina than the SEC West Gauntlet they got to face all the time. So I think teams like Mississippi State come out a winner in this new format.
That's what I like, Mike. There will be a balance. And you kind of think about the NFL, you know, I mean, there's some teams that manage to stay on top for a long periods of time, but it's a rarity. You know, you got Eagles coming out of nowhere. You've got Cincinnati on the rise now. Pittsburgh's falling, and it just that's kind of what it feels like the SEC is going to go to with this NIL and everything coming up, and now you're seeing the schedule, and you're seeing teams like Mississippi State that maybe had a rougher road to get to an SEC championship or definitely a college football playoff. You know, now going to have a better opportunity if they catch the scheduling right, if their roster's right at the right time. So I love this, man. This is what we want. We want competitive games, Mike. We don't want blowouts. And
Right.
and you're looking at this schedule, there's not one on there I'm like, well, they're going to get blown out during this one. No, it's going to be a tough battle, and you can easily convince me in 2 years that Arnett's got these guys moving right along and making some noise and making a shot of the top, 10, 15, So I love it, brother.
Right. Again, all it's going to take, Shane, if you're a Mississippi State or an Arkansas or South Carolina or Kentucky, is potentially one upset along the road.
Yep.
You take care of games at home. You take care of business. And you are going to be in that discussion for the 12-team playoff. And hell, who knows? Maybe even the SEC championship, which would guarantee your spot to a 12-team playoff. I don't know that programs like that realistically have that option today, but they will in 2024 with this format. Another reason to like it. Missouri, same boat, Shane. Let's give them Arkansas. That game's not going anywhere. Oklahoma, I think is going to be an annual thing. South Carolina, that's a fun game. Mizzou, South Carolina. Speaking of your walks, there's going to be a couple of them, I have to imagine. Kentucky, that's always a neck-and-neck battle as well. I'm giving them Auburn, Mississippi State, Texas, and Ole Miss. So they're another one. Mizzou is listed in the bottom half of the SEC, according to the 10-year metric, so they get more bottom-tier teams. I think Mizzou fans would, look, there's no Georgia on this schedule. There's no Alabama. I think they'd sign up for that. There's no LSU either.
Yeah, no. And I can't remember if it was our interview or I read one where Eli was talking about being in Texas. Do you know where that was off? And he says they've not really had a big recruiting presence there, but you see matchups like this. It's just brand awareness, and I think that's going to help programs like this getting into that state with Texas and Oklahoma matchups that where kids, that's all they grew up. I mean, you got to realize this is an SEC podcast. Most people that are listening to this are diehard. They got to be, Mike. Nobody logs on to listen to Mike and Shane if they just ain't got nowhere else to find SEC content. You know what I'm saying? But then there's folks like us, like them out there in Texas and Oklahoma. That's all they know. Yes, they've heard of Mizzou. Yes, they've heard, but they're telling their kids and their grandkids and generation after generation that's just how it works. But now you're going to have these matchups where Mizzou's going to Texas and pulls off a big upset, or Texas goes to freaking South Carolina under the lights, and it comes down to the wire. Oklahoma gets just railroaded and Tuscaloosa, But these kids, they're gonna look, and I'm not saying that's what's going to happen when these guys play. I probably shouldn't use that, but I'm just saying it's going to impact generations of college football now, man, because now we're establishing – it's like them old NCAA games when you're doing the pipeline. Like you want to keep recruiting out of Texas so you can create a pipeline.
Right.
Places like Mizzou are going to create that pipeline just by playing these games. So, man, I love it, brother. Keep it coming.
Well, you know what I realized while you were just sitting there spieling, though, Shane? I was kind of daydreaming, and
I saw you yawn twice. That's not that's not professional, Mike. You know.
No, I just realized. I said no Georgia, no Alabama, no LSU from Missouri, and like we're sitting here celebrating that. You know what that means? The next year, Alabama, Georgia, LSU on the schedule. So that'll be a rebuild year. This is the year. Yeah. The next year, that's a rebuild year. You know what?
All right, Eli, you got 2 years to figure this out. Are you going to be coaching high school down there in Texas?
All right, how about South Carolina, Shane? Keeping Georgia on the schedule. I think that's an important game. Kentucky, that's a nice little rivalry. We've already talked about it. Missouri, Tennessee, Shane. Tennessee, South Carolina. That is developing into a nice little one. Florida, keeping Florida on the schedule. Texas, South Carolina, Texas. That's interesting. Texas A&M. Again, it's not going to be an annual game, but I think maybe for another year we keep it on the schedule. That's become a more competitive series. And Mississippi State, where Shane Beamer, I believe he got his SEC assistant coach debut down there in Mississippi State, if I'm not mistaken. So, again, South Carolina, I think you sign up for this. Georgia, Kentucky, Mizzou, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. It's a little weird playing all those Texas and Mississippi State, but that balances it out and gives you more lower tier than upper tier. I think that's a manageable schedule.
Mike, did you and we've done so many teams and they're just rattling all in my head now. Have you had any SEC team going against both Texas and Oklahoma the first year? Like Texas A&M, did you have them taken? I guess I'm getting ahead, but I'm just
I do.
Okay, all right. Because I was just curious if you think the SEC really tries to keep that separate so that we can kind of enjoy that conference matchup for the first time. It seems like that's what they would do, and I kind of like that you went along the same lines there.
If it was smart, then hell yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Man, they're butchering it. They're way off. How hard is it to delete podcast? You know, just like if the schedule comes out on Flag Day and we're sitting there and I'm like, Mike, I'll just whisper on live TV, just hey, go ahead and drop that last pod because you were way off.
All right, how about this, Shane? Would you sign up for this Tennessee SEC schedule? We're keeping Vanderbilt, the in-state
win
game.
No, wait, we're not doing predictions. Never mind.
We're keeping Alabama on the schedule.
Uh-huh.
I've already told you we're keeping Florida on the schedule.
Yeah.
So we're keeping a lot of familiar teams. We already said Georgia.
Yeah.
Already,
like
you're
again.
Yeah, you're probably saying, "What the hell? I'm not doing this." But we also
draw from the West, Mike.
Kentucky, South Carolina, Arkansas, and Texas. So, again, we'll have
Texas.
An interesting balance here that I think this one is 4-4, so it is 4 upper, 4 lower. You could say this is maybe a little unbalanced, but, again, it's questionable. Where does Tennessee belong? Do they belong in the upper? Do they belong in the lower? They sure as hell were an upper-tier team last year, but for the better part of a decade, they've been lower tier. So they were a difficult one to balance. Like you're already alluding to, a lot of East teams here, but that'll flip next year to be a lot of West teams. What's your thoughts on that schedule for Tennessee?
Yeah, maybe being lower tier is not so bad after all, Mike. All those years of getting our ass kicked, it's paid off finally. So I'm with you here. I think this is going to be fun. I think it'll be an exciting schedule. I'm looking at it. It's a lot of East.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind splicing in a little more West in my opinion, because we only stole Arkansas. We're gaining Texas, which I think that would be an awesome matchup. A lot of, if you don't like orange, don't watch that game. But other than that, brother, I think I think this is. I'll sign up for this. Absolutely, give me this.
Right. All right, so for Texas, Shane, Oklahoma, we already said that. We got to keep them on there. Texas A&M, that's a must in my opinion.
Right.
Don't even add them to the damn conference if we're not going to play each other. Arkansas, we already said.
Mm-hmm.
LSU.
Yeah.
Tennessee, South Carolina, Missouri, and Auburn. Ooh, it's gonna be That'll be a nice little introduction for their Longhorns to the SEC.
That could be a doozy, man, because what does Auburn look like in 2024? You know, was Tennessee still moving right along? You know, so that that is a welcoming party right there. So, and I'm going to watch every single second of it too, Mike.
Yep. So for A&M, Shay, we're keeping Texas, keeping LSU, Oklahoma.
Wait, who's this now?
This is Texas A&M.
Okay. Well, can you do the Texas one more time real quick just so I can?
Yes, sir. Texas, we got Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Arkansas, LSU, Tennessee, South Carolina, Mizzou, and Auburn.
Okay. I was just thinking, 2024, golly, they're going to have the parent cams going like crazy during that Tennessee matchup. The Mannings, all of them out. You probably should have put Ole Miss in that schedule so that we could see them and Archie down there again. So, okay, no, I was just – all right, Texas A&M, where are we at?
Texas A&M, we got Texas, of course.
Yeah.
That's a must in my opinion.
Yeah, without doubt.
LSU, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Georgia, South Carolina, and Alabama. No breaks for them Aggies. That's a difficult slate. But again, they're an upper tier, so they got to face more upper tier teams.
Man.
Would you sign up for that one?
No. I mean, Jimbo ain't going to be happy. I guess we'll hear his side of the thing. But when you draw Georgia and Alabama and anything, you know, it's a difficult year. So, but
not
Texas
to mention
A&M,
LSU, Texas.
Yeah. Oof. Jimbo. I mean, yeah, buddy. Texas A&M better get they got to keep improving. They got to get there because, you know, by this time, this is unforgiving zone. And if you drop 3 of those games in that year, there's, you know, I'm saying they'll tear College Station down. Texas rolls in and you can't beat them, you know, that's going to be a problem. So I think this is going to be an electric that whole state is just going to be just pure madness during that 2024 schedule. I'm pumped up, man, to see what kind of content they put out down there.
I think the biggest question, Shane, for Texas A&M is it's almost a certainty they'll play.
Yeah.
But if they, you know, where on the schedule do you think they should play? Should it be, the final week of the season? Should it be the first week of the season? I mean, if it's somewhere tucked away in the middle, it's almost like a disappointment, I almost feel like. Would you put it at the beginning? Would you put it at the end?
Mike, I'd put it right there, the first SEC matchup. They're going to end with Texas, Oklahoma. So,
well, no. See, Texas, Oklahoma is always, it's at that fair. It's right in the middle of the year.
There's a freaking fair. So this is a legit fair that you can go to.
Oh, yeah.
We got to go down there then.
It's like 100,000 people go, and the football game
like fried Snicker bars and shit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'll be like a lean, mean fighting machine by the end. We can enjoy this Texas, Oklahoma fair. They got derby cars and everything. No,
I think they got it all down there, man.
Well, let's do it, man. So that's in October, right?
I believe so. I don't know the date. Again,
Okay.
we're new to Texas and Oklahoma, but I
All
promise you, they're not moving the date of that game.
I got you. All right, Mike. I think honestly, if you're going to do this matchup,
they used to play at the end too. Keep that in mind.
I know, but I'd love to see it early. Just you talk about the ultimate 2024 kickoff, Texas A&M, Texas. midnight, Ric Flair out there giving the pet. It's just so it feels like it could be built up all summer long, but I think ultimately this is a rivalry game, so we're going to have it at the end with all the others. So give me the end of the schedule.
It's almost like, and I don't want to compare this because it's probably a bad comparison, Shane, but, Tennessee, Florida for years and years, that game defined the season. Yeah. And it was always the first one. It was the one everybody pointed to. And then if you won it, you probably go win the division, play for the SEC. You lose it, you're going to have a bad year. You know what I mean? So in that sense, Texas A&M, if they played it early, I think it would be the similar where that'd be the one everybody circled. And if you lost it, fans are out, trash, on to the next year,
Yeah, that's it. But now you can't, with so many teams making the college football playoffs, you could still lose. But it's, I don't know. Right there at the end, it's just something special about that rivalry weekend. That's one of our, if I would say Thanksgiving week, I'm speaking, because I know you, Mike. I think Thanksgiving's our week. Yep. But I think the rivalry weekend is second, and a close second. And then you put a team like Texas and Texas A&M at it. Come on now. Come on now.
All right, final one here, Shane. Vanderbilt, clearly a lower-tier team. So I gave more lower tier. Again, Vanderbilt fans, I think, will be fired up about this. Tennessee, you get to keep. Kentucky, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Florida, Ole Miss, and to keep Nick from going nuclear, Alabama. So, again, you got more lower tier. It's not a murderer's row. You'll probably still be underdog in all those games, but that's just because you're in the state of rebuild. But that's a manageable SEC slate, I would think. No Georgia on there.
Yeah, well, if you had that manageable schedule now, I think you could make an argument. Like if it were this year that was rolling out, you could probably make an argument that they could upset a couple of these teams, win 2 or 3, just like they did last year. So, yeah, this is the trajectory. Big word.
Oh, you had it right the first time.
Did I? Yeah. Did it? It didn't sound like I was using it right. The trajectory, is that right?
Nailed it.
All right, that's exactly what I meant to say. Of this program is in the right direction. And 2024, it's going to be further along. I really do think that this is a slow build, Mike. They had to gut this thing out. They're going to have to build depth from the bottom up. So it was going to take a few years. But by the time these schedules roll out, they're going to be a lot further along. So who knows? They may win 3 or 4 of those games. So yeah, give me that Vandy schedule if I had it.
Well, hell yeah, Shane. And remember, they beat Kentucky last year. They beat Florida. Those are 2 teams on here. We talked about Oklahoma's schedule. Yeah, 1,000 out of 1,000, you'd say Oklahoma's favored and is probably going to beat Vanderbilt. But then you look at Oklahoma's schedule and you say, my God, they got Texas, A&M, Georgia, Florida. What if they throw Vanderbilt at the end of that? They might be waving the white flags. You know what I mean? So it's all about how the schedule breaks down too. So, there's winnable games on that schedule for every team. And I just think the way to balance this, yes, we want 9, but we're going to take 8, and we're going to find the best way to do it. And I think this is exactly – now, I may have not nailed every single team, but I bet you, Shane, that I nailed essentially teams at the top, got to play tougher schedule. Teams at the bottom play a little bit lighter of and there's no such thing as a lighter schedule, but a more balanced schedule, if you will. And I think it's going to make for a better all-around season in the SEC. Sign me up right now. You know what?
Well, unless you're one of those old schools that don't like change, because this is a whole lot of change, a whole lot of different teams coming at you and a different system coming at you. So it's going to take some getting used to. But, Mike, I like change to a certain extent. I like to see new teams. I like to see us grow because this conference is growing. It's going to be nice seeing these other two programs in there. I was reluctant at first. Hell, I was that way when Texas A&M Mizzou came over, and then they turned out to be a great addition to the SEC. This one will be no different. I think it's going to make for some more awesome football to watch, and we're going to be right there chugging along, learning new words along the way, Mike. This is a little side note, and I'm curious because I didn't really follow this game much. So the Texas and the Oklahoma matchup, is that I know it's at the fair, but was it always noon? Was it like the big noon kickoff? That was like their thing?
I think that's just Fox who's saying we cannot compete with the SEC 3:30, so they had to kick it at the noon so that people would actually watch it.
So this will
always be
3:30
in the SEC. I can guarantee you that.
Okay, yeah. Or not. Hell, even a night game. But still going to be at the fair, right?
Oh, yeah. They just announced they've re-upped. Not like the Florida-Georgia where they're always, should we keep doing it? Everybody wants to keep doing it because they don't want to go to Jerry World is what they don't want to do.
So, no, don't go to Jerry's. So can you go to the fair and then walk to the game? That's how this works?
As my understanding, you can even leave at halftime, go out, get even drunker, and come back into the state. That's my understanding. I've never been down there, but if you missed it, hell, another plug. We had Josh Pate on the show about 2 weeks ago. He said, man, I didn't think it would be that fun at a neutral site. He does not a fan of neutral site, but he said that was unlike anything he's ever seen. He said that was a classic, one of his top environments he's ever witnessed. So I cannot wait to see that as two SEC teams going head to head.
At Josh Pate form by that time, and I could afford to have me some deep fried pecan pies or some shit,
Yeah, you keep walking, Shane. You'll look like Josh Pate in no time.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Well, hey, I that's all I got. Deep dive on the schedule, but I just know this is in the topic of conversation. Can't wait for that Flag Day reveal, but I think we jumped the gun here, and I think we're going to nail it pretty accurately. But you got anything before we hop off the line?
No, again, there was a lot of teams thrown at you. Mike's going to, I'm sure, make some pretty sweet little graphics and send out on Twitter so you can kind of see how that breaks out. If you, again, I keep referencing the YouTube. If you're on there, it was shown during this podcast. So, yeah, enjoy it. I think this is exciting times, Mike. It's going to be a hot topic all the way up to media days, and we'll be right there covering it right along the way.
Absolutely. Well, buddy, I appreciate you as always. I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.
Till tomorrow. Go. Oh, shit. That's my walking thing. Yeah. Anyway, go Vols. Get out of here.